Everyone, I'd like to welcome you to the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting today, Tuesday, October 22nd. And if we'd please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So are there any adjustments or changes to today's agenda? Any adjustments or changes? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Also move.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So at this point, we'll move on to our public comment period, an opportunity for citizens to appear before the county board. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak this morning? Please come forward. You can sign in your name and address, and then also please state that for the public record.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name's Steve Watson. I live on Devil's Track Road. I'm in District 4. So, can you hear me if I
Please.
stand, or should I sit?
I think we can.
Okay. Anyway, I came to talk about the budget mostly, and to just address it from my point of view. Some of you I might talk about personally. I want you to know I like you as people, but I don't think you're good commissioners because you don't fight for your district. And I have talked to you 3 times about the budget here, and I see you as a yes vote for almost everything that happens, and your record is that you're going to increase the taxes every year, and Dave Mills, you're the same. When you first started, I think you said you wanted to keep everything down to 3 or 4%, but you haven't been able to do that. You should have stuck to your guns and stood and made it happen. Word on the street is that you want to double the commissioner's salary. I have a biology degree. Anything that lives off of a host is a parasite, a leech, a tapeworm. I don't know how you face your people if you want to do that. This is a service to the community, not a job. I believe you should get compensated, but your job is to serve the people and take care of the people that you represent. So here's the word that, through a lot of prayer, that this financial institution is running on. The word is greed. And greed always cries, never enough. That's why you always have to increase. Those are both demonic entities, actually, and in the Word of God it says that that entity can only lie, kill, steal, and destroy. So if you keep running on that, that's what you're going to reap, because that's how it will come about. There was some word on the street that there was one of the commissioners wanted to talk to a department head, and got shot down by you, Molly, and confronted that they weren't supposed to talk to the department heads here. You 5 people were the people who were elected. Nothing happens if you don't vote. Nothing. You're responsible for the mess that's here right now. And that is wrong, because they should be able to talk to anybody, because they're the ones responsible for all this. And that's disappointing. My personal opinion is if you need a county administrator, that money for his wages shouldn't come out of the general fund. It should come out of your 5 wages. Because he's doing your job. You guys should be doing the job. You're the ones responsible. And if you don't want to do the job, resign and let somebody in here who wants to and who will stand up for the people who live here. We don't want Aspen, Colorado, and Cook County, and neither do you, because those people have enough money to sue the shit out of you if you do bad things. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Take care.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak this morning? Right, we'll close our public comment and move on to item 3, which is coverage for county administrator leave. So for the public and for all of our people sitting at the dais this morning, we're going to go into a closed session to discuss some private medical information pursuant to 13D.05 subdivision 2A3. Following a sharing of some information, confidential information, we will be discussing coverage for our county administrator duties. At this time, is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Is there support?
Support?
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. We have a motion and support to go into closed session. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll right now suspend our live stream, go into closed session, and we'll return when we are finished. We will be Thank you all for waiting as we went into closed session. Prior to moving forward with this agenda item, it was brought to my attention that there was a written comment that was turned in to read during our public comment session, and it was not found until after we finished. So I'm going to reopen our public comment section just so that we can read this. This is written to commissioners regarding the county attorney vacancy. Rather than make an immediate appointment for this vacancy, I urge you to do what other counties have done in this situation. This includes advertising in the county's official newspaper and posting a listing with the Association of Minnesota Counties and the Minnesota County Attorneys Association. In this way, you will find the most qualified applicants who are ready and able to fill the vacancy. Sincerely yours, Don Davison, 583 South Shore Drive, Grand Marais, Minnesota, 55604. All right, we'll close that public comment session and move into item 3, which is our coverage for county administrator leave. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we have unfortunately had a situation that we've had to deal with that has required people to, in our organization, step up, show leadership, take responsibility, and work together so that today we can have a good, thorough discussion of how to move forward, given the fact that James Yorkie has had a death in his immediate family. As we move forward with our discussion today, we've had our leadership team meet to discuss this at length. We've been in conversation with our county administrator, and we want, before the public, to be able to have a clear, open, and honest conversation about how to move forward. Our leadership team has looked at the job responsibilities of the county administrator. We've looked at the skills and knowledge and expertise, temperament, and all the qualities that we know are important in providing leadership to our county. And so at this time, given the review that we've had and the thoughts that everyone sitting up here has had over the last many hours, I'd like to begin a discussion about how to move forward. As we've looked at first of all, the statute, the county board may designate a properly qualified person to perform the duties of administrator during his or her absence. This is set forward in statute 375A.06. We also need to keep in mind that James is dealing with the death of a family member, and that this qualifies for Family and Medical Leave Act, which was passed in 1993, allowing up to 12 weeks of job-protected leave to eligible employees for certain family, medical, or military reasons. We've reviewed James' eligibility, the length of his leave, unpaid leave, benefit continuation, and all the different aspects that are included in family and medical leave. This was an act passed back in 1993, and we've had experience with it. So what in essence we need to think about is, until we have further information from our county administrator, how we are going to cover the duties of our administrator over the next 12 weeks. There are knowledge, skills, and ability, education, experience, respectful and cooperative working relationships with staff, a need for strong communication skills, and a spirit of service, excellence, and integrity that is required. We have members of our team, our employees, who have reached out and indicated a willingness to help in areas of expertise and experience that they have. This will not be a position that could be filled without support, and I'm pleased to say our organization is stepping up to the plate. We have to consider current workloads and responsibilities, how a division of duties might occur. We have to think about budget, financial management plans, contract negotiations, the levy. The list is long. And we will have to make some adjustments once our decision is made in our work over the next few months. We are going to have to prioritize our work very carefully. Are there any members of our leadership team that would like to share any remarks at this point?
I don't have anything to share at this point, I guess.
Okay. So I'll open it up to commissioners. I have something I would like to say, but I don't need to say it first. And so if there are other commissioners that would like to share or comment, Commissioner
Well,
White.
Like, I just found out about this, so, like, the scenario of a missing, for whatever reason, administrator, like, I don't have the answer to that at all. So it's gonna be a while to wrap my head around the scenario of suddenly someone's gone from your life, so.
Commissioner Stern.
Yes, thank you. So are you asking that we give idea about somebody in the department heads that could do this, or who are you asking to step up for a while?
I'm not personally asking anyone to step up. That's a decision that the board needs to make, that we need to agree on, that we would vote in public on. I'm happy to share my thoughts. So as I got the news on Saturday with what had happened, I started to think about past experiences I've been in leadership roles or in organizations where there have been duties that needed to be filled immediately. And what are the qualities you look for, and how do you fill that? And I thought about a number of people in our organization, because we are so fortunate to have a strong team. I'm not going to dwell on this, but I thought about Brady Powers. Brady has the trust of the community. He has an incredible breadth of experience with the county. But we have an election coming up. And it's a contentious election. And one of the things I thought about is the importance of the public's trust in our election process and the many, many duties, in addition to that, that Brady is involved with right now regarding the budget and the levy. And I want to recognize that Brady has stepped up and is willing to offer great support for anybody that might be put into a temporary or interim position as a county administrator. So I want to thank you for that. We also talked about Attorney Hicken, knowing that she has a short tenure with our county, but that she has many years of experience and skill and expertise. And yet we know there's, when you're dealing with legal issues, potential conflicts of interest from that office. And so then we started to think, who else? And we looked again at the skills and qualities that our staff has. And Commissioner Storley, my head went where yours did with department heads. And we thought about the past when we were without an administrator for a while and what that interim position was like, what occurred during that time period, and the impact on relationships in the organization. And one thing we can be really proud of is we have really strong department heads. We're in a really good position with leadership. I thought about Rowan Watkins, our director of MIS. Rowan has presented to this group many times. He's done research for our organization, for us individually as we've had questions. He is a person of integrity, and he is a person that has a desire to serve and is willing to step up to help. He's one of those people that said he would be willing to help. So I would like to, I guess, share that thought with my fellow commissioners and get your reaction and your thoughts. Commissioner Johnson.
I will agree, Rowan is very knowledgeable about county business, so did you ask him to be the interim?
I can't ask him to be.
Okay, but
I
he
asked
was-
him if he was willing, and he is
Okay.
willing.
Okay, and then, and I agree, we have some internal leaders that maybe could help fill the gap for a while. But I'm wondering, our previous interim person, I also think has knowledge and skills. So I'm wondering,
And
has
that
anybody
has-
reached out?
That has
Just-
been a discussion, yes.
Okay, so,
I have not personally reached out. I know that there is a willingness.
so I'm wondering about
To help.
process now. How long do we want to take to do this? And how do we find willing and able people? Are we going to just appoint Rowan this morning? I'm wondering what your thoughts are about this process, because like Commissioner White, I'm still like, oh, okay, I didn't know
Yeah.
this.
So this is very raw, very fresh for all of us, because we're dealing with the emotions around loss, but it is our duty and our responsibility to make sure that things are covered. Immediately, there were things that we had to make sure we did yesterday on the first day of business. For example, Brady, do you want to share your additional responsibility with signing?
Oh, yeah, just things like signing department head timesheets, for example.
Yeah. I mean, there were things that as of yesterday, we had to start to delegate. And I want to be clear that we are looking at a 12-week period. This is quite different than the situation that we had back during the pandemic when our former county administrator left. So this is a finite period of time.
And I'll just add to what Ann said. I think the leadership committee was all in support of Rowan. Some of us independently thought the same thing.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Attorney Hicken.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I'll add to the discussion that since we have in this county elected to run under a county administrator form of government, there are a lot of things, a lot of powers that have been delegated to the county administrator position that kind of go unfilled while there's not an interim person. one important thing is that the county administrator is who every department head reports to. The county administrator is in charge of all the purchases and making those decisions. The county administrator makes final decisions as to suspension and termination and hires. So whether or not somebody is officially given the title interim county administrator, all of those individual responsibilities need to be delegated somehow, and soon, unfortunately. I mean, yeah, I wish it didn't come up so suddenly. Obviously, that's not in our control, and everyone would prefer to have avoided the loss.
Commissioner Storley.
Well, I guess my thought right now is that Rowan has been approached, and he said he would be willing. If we don't have any other suggestions or background as to who else would do it, I would entertain that we would, for the 12 weeks, have him as the interim.
So is that a motion?
I'm just talking out loud right now
Okay.
for any reaction from anybody else.
All right, thank you. Commissioner
And,
White.
did you say that you'd talked about this with the last interim outside this organization, the person who filled for a while during the pandemic?
I received a text.
And
I did not speak with that
Okay,
person.
was it like Rowan, there'd be a willingness to help?
Mhm.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson?
This is too fast.
Madam Chair, willing to help or willing to step in? There's two differences. Willing to step in?
That has not been, I have not discussed that.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson?
I'm just wondering, can we bring Rowan here? I mean, I think it'd be helpful to hear it firsthand than having everybody tell us what Rowan said and what Rowan's expectations are and what help he thinks he might need and what areas he thinks he can do fine. I don't know. I mean, I'm just wondering. Before I vote, it's kind of
Absolutely.
like to have him talk about it.
Yeah, Jana, if you could go get
Paging Rowan
Rowan.
Watkins.
Doesn't every employee watch these meetings? I thought that's.
Rowan does.
He's nearby.
He's on it.
There's a lag.
Yeah, to freshen up.
Good morning, Rowan.
Thank you for coming at the
If you'd
last minute.
Come and sit up at the mic. You don't need to sign in and put your address there. So, Rowan, there are questions, and maybe you caught this, but Commissioner Johnson, you just want to restate your question.
I prefer to hear it from you directly rather than secondhand.
Sure, absolutely. And I just, there's a little delay in the video, so I just caught you starting to say that you were wondering if I could be here. So that was when I came in. So that's all the context I have.
We're discussing you being the county administrator for the interim,
Yep.
and that's a big role to fill. And know you have some skills that can do that. I'm just wondering, from you personally, you feel up to stepping into that role and all aspects of that role, or are there different, are there areas where you say, oh, that's going to be really tough for me, I'm going to need some help? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I appreciate the question and wanting to hear it from me directly. The process was for me yesterday being called into the leadership committee meeting, being told this absolutely devastating, terrible news, and the question being brought to me about that. I didn't say yes or no right away. I wanted to know about timeline, was told later about that a 12-week period. I had concerns about that. And then the other piece was the sharing of duties, and from the group that was in there between Brady and Allison and HR and Molly and Ann and everyone I I feel the same way. If there's a way that I can help, I'll do everything that I can and do what's asked and do what's required. But that timeline, that short period of time, I think is important that we stick to, that it's not much longer than that, if any. And I will need help from Brady and Molly and Ann and be brought up to speed on context. There's obviously things that have been happening in meetings that I'm not a part of, and so there'll be a curve to be brought up to speed on certain things for sure.
And have you talked with your staff in your department about what might happen?
I have, yep.
And do you feel like they're willing to step up and also
I do.
take
That
on
was
some of yours?
Another big consideration that I mentioned to Ann, that I'd want to talk to my staff and also my family. I think where we are right now with our projects that are going forward, I think we're in an okay spot where for 12 weeks, those things will move forward. We know what we're doing, and we'll be okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Storley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ron, for considering this. It will take us into 2 weeks of January, after we've had elections and all, so that you've considered that time frame too?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I would follow up by Ann, like say, exactly what it would look like.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you.
Are there other questions for Rowan this morning? Commissioner White.
What happens if it comes around that we will need more than 12 weeks?
Then we would have to deal with that. Right now, the future is unknown. The organization doesn't know what's beyond that time frame, and James doesn't know right now beyond that time frame. So it's really important that we keep focused on that 12 weeks, and we are going to need to be flexible and nimble and prioritize so that we can be successful through this difficult time.
And so for Rowan, what happens? 12 weeks sounds like, let's see. But what happens if it's, like, even if it's like a last minute thing, this is not going to work, more time is needed. Does Rowan just stay in his position as the interim, or does he go back, go back to being the department head, and then we have a vacancy? Or is this something we'll wait till that moment in time to make a decision?
We certainly will probably have discussion along the way as we get more information, but there's no way to predict that. And so what we did is look at this time frame with what we know, Family Medical Leave Act, what we can do by statute.
Yeah.
Brady, you look like
I
you have
was
something
just-
to say.
Well, I just think we go forward having discussions as what if 12 weeks from now. So we'll be thinking about it prior to then and thinking about what steps we would take so that we're not going to wait to think about it for 12 weeks. So we'll have other options.
Rowan.
I would just add, if it was give or take 12 weeks, I don't think that's going to be detrimental to our department. My question and concern was really from my comparison and experience to how it went last time with COVID and the previous interim, being there for a much more extended period of time. And so it was just really a question about the board's intent and how long they'd want to operate in that capacity. And that was really, it's not that MIS is going to fall apart on the 13th week. It's just making sure that I have a pretty good understanding of what the commitment is and what we're signing up for. And if it's give or take a few weeks, just so that you know that it's not something that I think is going to be extremely detrimental to the MIS department.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we have Rowan Watkins as our interim administrator for the 12 weeks that's been requested.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
You do not need to come and sit here today. I'd like to thank you all for a difficult discussion, an important discussion. It's important that we be candid, that we ask the right questions. And I just want to let you know I appreciate all of you so much. Commissioner?
I just thought of a question. Is this an out-of-class appointment then?
Mhm.
And did we need to state that we recognize that this is an out-of-class appointment for payroll purposes? Or, I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
but legal.
Maybe a good
legality.
idea, since typically that decision would be up to the county administrator.
Yeah.
So the board should probably take action
Okay.
on that.
Commissioner, you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the right words for that.
Okay.
Brady, you're going to fix it, right? I'll make the motion.
Allison.
Okay. That we approve the out-of-class appointment of Rowan Watkins as our interim county administrator.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. We have a motion and support. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. At this point, we'll move on to our next agenda item. I need just a minute.
We do the consent agenda yet?
All right, as we move forward, we have a consent agenda before us. Are there any items the Commissioner wishes to pull? Commissioner White?
Yes, for the Holly Schroeder, the county courthouse county
right.
recorder.
So it seems appropriate to take item E and move that to Human Resources. Would that be appropriate?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So with that change, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item E?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on now to the proposed sale of Superior National Golf Course, and Commissioner Mills sits on the EDA as our representative, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is just for information. The EDA has a presentation and a recommendation to pursue the sale of the golf course. This is a very hot topic and a very large discussion, and so the EDA asked to get this information to you on the agenda as soon as possible to process, formulate questions, ins and outs, and then November 12th, there will be a presentation from representatives of both the Board of Governors as well as the EDA to engage and discuss this. So no decisions need to be made right now. It's just to get information out there and get some more focus on it. So, and I'm afraid I can't answer many questions myself and have questions as well. So happy to field questions if there are some I should pass on, but I'd also encourage all of us to reach out to the Board of Governors or whomever on the EDA you feel you have a good working relationship with to ask questions and work through things, so. One of the things, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things I was asking at the last EDA board meeting was how much of the use at Lutz National is, Superior National is from locals, and how will this impact locals? So hoping to get that data specifically. And it could have been presented and I just glossed over it in the past, but that was one thing I wanted to know more about. There's some skepticism on how a sale would or could happen, but the kind of the long and short of it is that it either requires significant investment, and I'm not sure there is public community appetite and our board's appetite for that, or it should be sold. I've thought about other public entities that could, but we just don't have anything set up, and it needs investment now and in the near future. So I think it's going to be a very healthy discussion, and I think it's important. It's a big deal. It's a really important one, and this has been kind of a hot topic in our community for many, many years.
It has. Commissioner Johnson.
Oh, you had a question?
Go ahead, Commissioner
Thank
Story.
you. Yeah, I just want to say, we did have a little gathering to thank some of the employees for their dedication, especially Mike, who came on board 31 years ago, and my involvement with the golf course was in some gardening, and whenever I asked to have a boulder be put over on fairway number 7, the boulder was there the next day, and so I have had a good working relationship. Golf myself, brought family up to golf, so there again, I don't know how much they keep track of locals versus visitors. I know there's a ton of visitors from all over the country, actually, so that part would be a good percentage. I just don't know about the local.
Yeah.
Commissioner White.
And I would like to encourage the public. In this packet that we were given, there's more information that can be verbally absorbed. So open the packet and read the information. There are different scenarios and what the costs are. And if the voters really want to know, I think this was a very comprehensive presentation, or in writing for us. So,
Yeah, they did a good job.
and it will take time, so, to read it all and then read it again. So, to whomever put this together, thank you.
One of the things I'd like to recognize is the thorough work of Teresa Bida, the former executive director of the EDA, in working with this and working with the Board of Governors and the members of the EDA board. This has, as you mentioned, been something that's been discussed and been a hot topic in our community for years. She did a very, very thorough job, and I find it also very helpful to have heard from her the amount of time and effort the golf course takes for that EDA director role. It's, it's Economic Development Authority, and it's in addition got a golf course, and that's very different than other EDAs that I'm familiar with around the state. So I just want to applaud her for her courage and for her time commitment in making sure that we had a really good report to review and study and to share with the public, so that when November comes and we have individuals here from the EDA and the Board of Governors to speak with us, we are well informed and have good questions. And I appreciate Commissioner Mills thinking about reaching out before that meeting to get questions answered that we have. Any other comments, Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I just want to thank the EDA board. This has been a long time coming, and I appreciate the information and the research that really went into this. It's a complicated situation, and this is not something that's going to happen soon. There's lots of pieces that need to fit together, but I appreciate that the EDA finally is stepping up and saying, we have to deal with the golf course. So I just want to say that.
And one thing I'm going to share with the EDA, and I imagine there's some board members listening this morning, is that I am really interested in getting a market analysis on the value of Superior National. We have people in our county that deal with commercial real estate, but not with golf courses. That's a whole different animal. And so I think we're going to hopefully get some information from a professional that deals with that to help guide us in our decision-making. That is my big request of the EDA. Other questions or comments? If not, we'll move on to item number 6, Highway Department. The dynamic duo has arrived. Good morning, Engineer Haas and Matt.
Good morning. So before you, we have a couple of policies. We'll start with our subordinate district policy. I believe it was last week. We brought this to the committee of the whole and had a wonderful discussion about it. Quick background is we worked this for several, I think, highway committee meetings as well. So we had input from that committee meeting, which then we talked about, I'd say at length at the committee of the whole last week. And then now we're here. So it's just some minor revisions with it. I guess I don't know if I need to go into it again or not. I mean, we talked about it last week. So is there any additional questions with the updated policy?
Any questions that commissioners have? It's pretty fresh in our minds, and thank you for all the little tweaking that you did. Those tweaks are important.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve and adopt the subordinate government service district policy.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion amongst our board? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next one's kind of a similar story. This is a new policy, though. We didn't have any policy, any guidance, really, as far as our calcium chloride application was concerned. And that was something that Matt and I have talked a lot about. And, as we talked about in the committee of the whole last week, budget constraints really made us take a really hard look at this and try and develop some metrics to follow. That we didn't have before. So again, this was a policy that had been worked through Highway Advisory Committee. We talked about it last week again at length, and that was another one that we thought was ready to come before you today. So is there any additional questions with this one, I guess?
Any questions? I just want to thank you for your policy work. It is so important in helping us move in the right direction.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the policy.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Is there support? I'll support. Any further discussion?
The reason we were told that the engineer is putting these policies together is he thinks that he's probably going to win the lottery and be gone. So anyone can just step in because he will have documented it, so it will be more, transitioning will be much easier.
Part of
I'm
our
glad
strategic plan. Yay, you're doing it.
I'm glad the odds are with us on this one. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Commissioner Storley?
Pardon?
Oh, I thought you were asking to speak. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you
very
so
much.
much. And now we have our MIS discussion, Management Information Systems, and we'd like to welcome Rowan Watkins and Jay DeCou. You each get a mic.
We'll split the difference.
Divide and conquer.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Madam Chair, members of the board, today we have just an informational piece for you all. Earlier this year, radio communication analyst Jay DeCou submitted a Armor Grant Program application to the Department of Minnesota Public Safety on behalf of Cook County. And on September 24th, MIS received notice that the application had been selected for a total grant offer to Cook County of $389,503.65, with a 5% local match requirement of $20,500.19. The grant operates in state fiscal year 24 through 26. And the tentative grant period is November 1st, 24, so coming soon, through June 30th, 2026. Over 170 entities applied to this grant, with projects totaling over $23 million in requested funds. The average grant funding request was for $130,000, so we're well above that. Thanks in parts to how Jay wrote that grant application. The Department of Public Safety, DPS, Emergency Communications Division, ECN, in collaboration with stakeholders and armor subject matter experts, have scored and awarded this grant based on the highest overall scores and funding available, and have determined the final grant offers to awardees. So that's just how they looked at it, and looked at what Jay presented and our needs, and scored us very high and awarded us a significant amount of money. The grant is intended to replace existing public safety armor radios and armor radio accessories. The timing is really, really great for us. The last time we had a large purchase of armor radios was 2014. We had a FEMA AFG, or Assistance to Firefighter grant, that purchased the initial round of this. At that time, we approached MnDOT to talk about what's typical for a life cycle, what's an appropriate replacement schedule for these radios, and communicated to then the fire departments, ambulance services, first responder groups, that they're going to be responsible for budgeting and replacing these radios. 7 to 10 years. So here we are in 2024, 10 years later, and again, thanks to the application and the well-written application that Jay submitted, we're now in a position to really help offset those costs for our fire departments and replace those radios that need it. And so last night, Jay and I went to the fire chiefs meeting and talked through this, and we have a plan, and made sure that they're in agreement on how we're going to move forward with the types of radios, try to have that consistent across all departments as much as we can. That makes it easier on them in a lot of ways, and easier on us from a support standpoint. They will, and communicated to us last night, that they have been allocating funds and have money to backfill the difference. This grant won't replace every radio in all of our fire departments, but they have the funds to backfill the difference. So it's going to take us from having 10-year-old radios at the majority of our departments and bring us up to having new, good working equipment. Anything you want to add to that?
One of the functionality bits that we're looking to explore with the grant as well is in 2014, when all those radios were purchased, they were purchased as single band radios. We made a wholesale change from the old VHF system to the new Armor system. And a lot of that capability of using VHF frequencies, which are used by the DNR and by the BIA and by the U.S. Forest Service, was sidelined. And so at the meeting last night, one of the things that many of the fire chiefs mentioned was their willingness to purchase into the same platform that we're looking to use, and to expand into some VHF capability again, for interoperability within the county and the organizations that we work with, specifically for fire. That's encouraging because it increases a lot of our interoperability opportunities, and it will alleviate some of the challenges that we've had in working with those other agencies to try and figure out how do we actually talk to each other. So that's one of the encouraging things about the willingness that we've seen from the fire chiefs and the platforms that we're looking for this new round of radios. So.
The last piece that, I guess, next steps that we'll talk about in relation to the grant is we haven't signed the grant contract yet. The period will, again, be starting tentatively November 1st. We'll get some paperwork, but we'll want to do a little bit more conversation on the details with Brady about the county acting as the fiscal agent and what's the best way to do that. What's the smoothest way for the grant, and with the fire departments, do we purchase those radios and re-invoice the departments for the difference? We have accounts that we use for that type of business, but we typically don't run that much, that size of expense through those accounts. It's usually a radio or a pager here or there, and we do that to make sure that the vendors get paid timely. We make sure that we get state bid pricing and that they get exactly what they need, they being the fire departments. And it works well, but we want to make sure that we're going about that the right way. So that's kind of the last piece to figure out in the plan, to get this money and get these radios and equipment rolled out to our fire departments. Any questions on any of that?
Commissioner White.
How many radios are you talking about?
So part of the conversation we had last night was Jay's done a really lot of work on different options for radios, capabilities, and testing, and that was part of the conversation last night. Was here's a set of radios that are starting to look at potentially being end of service life, meaning that there's only a guarantee we can have parts for 5 years, and then as parts are available after that. We've seen that before, usually 2 to 3 years following that. And when you get to the end of that, then instead of sending a radio that doesn't work in and having it replaced or fixed or replaced for a flat rate of $250 or thereabouts, they say, sorry, you get to buy a new radio. So that was a consideration. Different platforms, different ranges, but the combined total with the match that we're required to provide, a little over 400,000, we will buy as many radios as we can with the model of radio that our fire chiefs decide on that is the best, divide that equally amongst the fire departments, and then they'll use their funding to backfill the difference for the radios that they need.
That was the best way that we could figure to keep it equitable across all of the departments, full well knowing that the larger departments do have a greater need, but also sometimes have a more direct line for funding than some of the smaller departments. And so all of the departments seem to be in agreement on that. And based on the platform, I still have to get another tester radio that I'm going to pass around to the different departments for them to see what they think about it. But we're talking ballpark on the low end, probably 100 or so radios for the more expensive versions, and then for the less expensive versions, probably in the neighborhood of 120, 125, something like that. So it's 10, 12 per department, which if you look at the active firefighters in most of the department, that's pretty okay that's a significant portion of the active firefighters in a lot of departments.
And then those that don't get a new radio, their old ones continue to function, or?
Yep, they continue to function. They are, as I mentioned, the model that we have now is that end of service life. And knowing that and offsetting that, the strategy that we've taken for a while now is, as other partner agencies, not within Cook County but outside, replace their radios, they offer those types of radios up. And so we actually have about 15 to 20 mobile or vehicle radios, and somewhere between probably 50-ish handheld radios that, if needed, they can be brought in and replaced if a department feels like they just absolutely can't afford to buy a new radio. And we've been running on that applying, Jay's looked at other AFG grants and other things, knowing that this armor grant program was coming, asking our departments to kind of hang in there and wait with us so that we can get everybody up onto, again, a new single platform, a single timeline, and kind of keep that going where there's just a lot of benefits there, from the support to the end user when they show up on a scene. I know how your radio works, you know how my radio works, to purchasing power, right? Instead of a single department going and buying 30 radios, if we can kind of continually, collectively say, we're gonna buy 150 radios, the price gets brought down. And so if we can continue to do this, we will, but that's the timeline that we're operating under. And nobody will go without a working radio. Yes.
Thanks.
Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Well, this is great news, and thank you for putting this together. It's been a constant conversation in the West End, and the fact that some of the townships said, they'll fill in the gap. They can write grants, like you say, to fill in certain areas, and especially something like this that really is important in public safety. So appreciate that, and I won't say anything until I get the word to the groups and townships in the West End.
Commissioner Mills.
Yeah, just my involvement in the Public Safety Committee at AMC is I hear a lot about the armor radios and replacement and the replacement schedule and the funding and all that. So this is not luck for us. This is hard work and good work. So thank you very much for that, and coordination and collaboration and partnership. Just really appreciate that. So thank you. Absolutely.
It's so important to make sure that the firefighters in our community have the best equipment that they can have, because we don't have that many lines of defense. And so if something bad happens, I listen to pages all day across the paging system, and it's always fire departments that get called first. And so those literally are our first responders. They need to have the equipment that works.
Commissioner, you had a question.
Just a comment, thank you. And I went online to look at the list of this, what is this? It's pretty impressive what Cook County got out of that list. If you look at the long list of applicants, the scores, and the amount of money. So it kind of speaks to us talking about grant writing and making sure you have an expert in that field write the grant. I think that kind of talks for itself there. So thank you for taking the time and the effort to do this for us.
Huge boon, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, go ahead, Ron.
Briefly, if I could, just last regular meeting, Commissioner White asked me to talk a little bit about the Minnesota model, the governance structure of the SECB. This is how we got this funding, through those channels. And so if I could, real briefly, bring that slide up and talk a little bit about the governance structure that supports it and the value that we get out of it in context of the grant that we just got. I think you do, yeah, the window.
There it is.
There it is. So this is the governance structure of the SECB, or Statewide Emergency Communications Board, and it is defined in state statute, the 403 statute, and it gives them governance over emergency communications throughout the state. And I do just want to spend just a small amount of time talking about the value that we get as a county participating in that governance structure. Could you click on the statute just briefly? It's under SECB on the little box to the left of governance.
Up and to the left.
A little farther left.
Oh, there we go. I see.
Yep.
There it is.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. And so this is the link to the statute, and the summary is that it's responsible for providing Minnesota residents and first responders with multiple and reliable means of communications before and during and after emergencies. And the part that I want to highlight is the second sentence in that paragraph of how the board is made up. It's 1/3 from Greater Minnesota, 1/3 from the Twin Cities metro area, and 1/3 from state agencies providing public safety. And that gives us, being Greater Minnesota, a really equal set speaking voice at the table and voting and making these decisions. And then if we could just go back one click and then show the organizational chart and just, there you can actually click it, the highlight view chart, the link just to the above and to the left of it. Yep.
There we go.
And so then the scope of what the SECB now covers. And so it's those blue or the purple squares going down to the left a little bit, second to the left. So it's Next Gen 911, land mobile radio or armor, wireless broadband, that's cell service and FirstNet, IPAWS or integrated public alert warning systems, that's Code Red for us or Everbridge or other those systems. And then they have interoperability, finance, steering, and legislative committee. But the public safety emergency communications is all encompassed under this governance structure. And then for us in the Northeast, you can see us second from the right. We have the Emergency Communications Board, which is a joint powers agreement. We have the ability to spend each other's money and do sometimes. Below that is the Regional Advisory Committee. That's technical folks like Jay and myself that make recommendations to that board. And those board members are typically elected officials, county commissioners. Deb White serves on it. Sheriffs are also commonly there. And then below that you have your owners and operators, and that's people who own these systems. So they own 911 systems. They own IPAWS, integrated public safety warning systems, Code Red. That's our Ben Hallberg, Lindsay Milkey, the people that own and operate that infrastructure. And then the users. And so that's firefighters, EMS people, deputies, boots on the ground folks. And that governance structure is known as the Minnesota model and is really sought after nationally. And why it works so well is because it is ground up, but it's information sharing. It's the reasons why we know things are coming and can budget in advance, because we attend these meetings, we go there. Encryption is a requirement that's coming, that's being pushed down from the federal government for law enforcement traffic. We knew that years in advance because of attending these meetings. When we replaced sheriff's office radios, we made sure those radios are going to be capable of doing that. And they are, and that's a project that we'll be doing this year. Addition to all the other funding that's there, and open it up for questions after this, just to speak a little bit more to the value that we get from this organizational structure. There's $7 million available right now in 911 funds in a new grant coming through this governance structure for GIS mapping, indoor mapping, specifically targeting schools, but other indoor public safety needs mapping, something that we, again, could take advantage of. There was $1.5 million in federal funds matched with another $1.5 in state million funds for the Next Gen 911 program in 2019 and 2022, something we did take advantage of. And so for us, just going back a few years, we're here in 2024 receiving $389,000 for armor radio funds. In 2022, we received $15,000 GIS-related Next Gen 911 funds, helping define jurisdictional mapping boundaries so that when you call 911, the right agency gets dispatched. $250,000 was awarded across our region that year. And then in 2020, we received $95,000 to offset the cost of replacing our 911 CPE, or call processing equipment. And that was part of a larger $445,000 across the Northeast region that makes up that joint powers agreement. So just some context on what that group does, the value that we get by attending it, both financially and informationally and peer sharing. Promised Commissioner White I would come back and explain more on that and provide that information. So that's a good summary of it, and I'd stand for any other questions if there are any.
Commissioner?
And I would like to thank you, because the listening public needs to know that nobody can explain it as well as these two people in our department. I sit in awe and confusion, and I'm aware at these meetings that everyone knows what they're talking about, and I do end up with feeling protected, or the fact that there's good communications in place for our county. So going forward into the future, I believe that for me to ever do a presentation on what I learned at the Emergency Communications Board, I just want one of these two people to do the explanation. So with their history and they know what they're talking about. So
I would concur, having sat in that chair for a period of time, and we are so fortunate to have these two providing support for us in the area of communication. Well, thank you for your application, your successful application, and we just appreciate all that you do for our firefighters, our first responders, search and rescue, all the people that use the devices that are coming our way. Thank you so much. I was thinking about taking a break, but we're not going to.
I was a little hesitant about coming up just because.
We have our Director of Land Services here, Tim Nelson, to speak with us about a septic grant.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. This will actually be fairly brief. This is, unlike a lot of the septic grants that we have come to you before, the One Watershed, One Plan grants, either through the North Lake Superior watershed or the Rainy River watershed, which we're going to be doing some projects on, continuing our Lakeshore septic compliance program. This here is actually a continuation. This happens every year. This is through the DNR Natural Resources Block Grant. It's one we get that does perpetuation of administration, costs kind of a subsidy to us for regulating the septic systems. And that one, actually, we do see a slight increase in that one. We usually get about 18.6 on that, and that's now been increased to the 22 or 21.2 or whatever that is. And then the 40 grant is for a program of assisting low income for septic upgrades. And if you take that number, septic or 40,000, if that could pay even less than one system costs these days. So we do generally break that up into a few different systems. It is income-based, and we try to help as many people as we can. As you may well know, we do have other programs that are low-interest programs for folks, so we do have funds available for people outside of this to help in the upgrade of the systems. And I guess I'll just leave it at that unless you have any questions.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, thanks. So the 21.6 goes into the levy amount.
Yeah.
And the 40 does not. And that made me wonder, I wish Brady was still here. A couple of years ago, we set aside $500,000 for that program. And have an update of how much of that got used and where we're at with the need for funds?
Right, and Commissioner Johnson, Madam Chair, there's actually a few different programs that we have. This is separate from that. This is for specifically the low income requirements have to be met. The pot that we had set aside, we did so in anticipation of the Lakeshore septic compliance program that we have that have done actually a couple thousand inspections, and in the average that we've gone through the lakes that we've done this on, and we target the specific lakes and riparian properties to get the biggest kind of ecological boom out of it as we can. We've probably upgraded close to 1,000 systems. Based off that, most all of the systems have been covered themselves. We haven't used as much out of that fund. What you're talking about is one that's set aside for, it's a low-interest one. It's a loan program where people would be able to apply to, and there's no income basis on it. We just wanted to kind of facilitate the upgrade of these systems since we're unilaterally doing all of the inspections. And that the way that it's structured, people would get the system replaced, and then the cost of that system through that low-interest loan program would be based on their their property taxes over the course of 10 years and paid off in that stretch. And I don't know what the exact amount is, but yeah, we haven't used near as much as what we had anticipated that we used. Generally, we have found that people have, on the lake shores and the riparian lots, have funded their own upgrades.
And I'll bring that up just because we're talking budget later
Sure.
in our meeting, and are there funds? We have lots of projects and lots of requests, and I'm just wondering, well, maybe if there's a fund out there that isn't getting used like we projected it might get used, that we look at that. My other question here is, because I also looked this one up, but as far as reporting, it says the grantee must display on its website the previous calendar year's detailed information on the expenditures of grant funds and measurable outcomes, and I couldn't find it on our website. So where does it get reported?
We report directly to the state. I don't know if the state has that on their particular
I couldn't
website
find
or
it
whatever.
there either.
Yeah, okay.
But I just thought it'd be interesting. I was looking at
Sure.
all the counties that get this, and I'm just curious how Cook County compares to other counties. So I was looking for that, and I'm wondering
Yeah.
where I can find that. Can you, if you report it, can you just send that to me so
Oh,
I
yeah,
can see
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
In
thanks.
fact, I can compile a report and send it to the board over the last 10 years.
That'd be
or so.
helpful.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Thanks.
Other questions?
Commissioner Sullivan? Question, were you able to find information from other counties?
PDFs, yeah, I could find some things, but I don't really know what I'm looking at, so it'd be helpful to compare it with, this is how Cook County did it, and I can say, oh, yeah, I know that.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, well, is there a motion to approve this, to accept the grant money?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. So I have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Neva Maxwell is going to join us to talk about a rezone that came before the Planning Commission last week and was recommended for approval to this board. Neva.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last week at the Cook County Planning Commission meeting, they reviewed a request to rezone approximately 2.4 acres of land. That's a part of Siegel Outfitters right now. And the rezone would make what is currently resort commercial residential to become the Lakeshore Residential and FAR 3 zone district. So it's essentially shifting the existing zoning boundaries between those existing zoning districts 150 feet northerly so that the property owners can subdivide the land that currently houses their home and they can live at that place. We couldn't accommodate that administratively to subdivide the land because the minimum lot size requirement for the Resort Commercial Residential Zone District is a 5-acre minimum lot size requirement. So the Planning Commission held the public hearing. We did not receive any written comments from the public, nor was there anyone in person to speak for or against the request. The application was represented by Smith Law PLLC, and the Planning Commission felt that this was an adequate request for the reasons to rezone land, specifically because they were existing zone district boundaries that were shifting. And the Planning Commission voted in favor of the request and recommended that this be approved.
And just so commissioners, I'm sure, are aware, but so members of the public are aware, this is an impact to Siegel Outfitters, just so that we're clear on that. And it really aligns with what is the case for other similar businesses in that area. Gives the people an opportunity to live on their property, stay on their property, whether they own that outfitters or not. Any questions for Neva?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution to rezone approximately 2.4 acres from resort commercial residential to lakeshore residential and forest agricultural residential at 12208 Gunflint Trail.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we take a 5-minute break?
We can, you read my mind. We will take a short break and return for our human resources item. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone back to our Cook County Board of Commissioners meeting. We are on item 9, Human Resources, and we'd like to welcome Allison Plummer, our HR Director. Good morning, Allison.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, so our first agenda item to address is the acceptance of County Attorney Molly Hicken's resignation. So included with the board packet is Molly's resignation letter, and then also reference to Minnesota statute that we will refer to that will give the board the authority to fill the vacancy to complete Molly's appointed term. But first and foremost would be to accept her resignation with deep regrets. This was a hard one to put on the agenda because Molly is a dear, close friend of mine, and we've worked closely our entire working career here, but wish her nothing but the best of luck. So her last day would be January 2nd of 2025. So we would be looking for having a vacancy and potentially appointing someone to fill that vacancy starting January 3rd of 2025.
Thank you. Are there questions that commissioners have for Director Plummer?
I'd make a motion to accept the resignation of Molly Hicken, effective January 3rd.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Commissioner Mills.
No, I'm sorry.
Any
Thank
other-
you for your service.
You're welcome. It's been a joy and a challenge, both.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries with regret.
And we should put on, Madam Chair, we should just make sure we have on the agenda some room to talk about the transition, the potential for appointment. I've recommended that the board appoint Assistant County Attorney Gene Munson as my successor. There are options other than that, but what is not an option is to go without somebody in that role, whether they are interim or not. But we have some time to consider that, to discuss it.
Commissioner Johnson.
To that point, I would recommend that we advertise this position immediately, that we start gathering applications and potential candidates. And I would encourage Attorney Munson to apply. But I think we as a board, this is an elected position, and I would hate for us just to fill it for the rest of the term without making sure that we have thoroughly asked for input or applicants. So just, I would treat this like one of our other vacancies. We start your process right now to gather applicants.
And I have to correct myself because I said Jean Munson, her name is Jean Peterson.
And some other information that may be new to some of the board members is we've discovered since we first talked about this came out, that the law changed in 2024. We hadn't gotten a summary on that, but determined that you can have a special election for attorney and sheriff now. Just happened this year. So that is possible. You have to fill it by appointment, because you have to have somebody there on the day Molly leaves. So that's for sure, but at some point, you could have a special election. There are certain dates and times, so just so you know that.
Yeah.
And
You don't have to.
do you know that time frame of, are we talking like March, April?
This is memory that I think the first date is in February, then it jumps to April, if I remember right. They're just particular dates allowed for special elections.
but it's not a state requirement we
No.
hold it.
No.
It's just an
now
option.
it's an option. It was not an option before, and that's how it was first presented, because we couldn't find evidence of this, because it's not published on the legislative
revisers.
website yet. You had to be aware of the,
And
all
I would
that.
like to recommend that we put this on a future agenda so that we can actually get that language and have an opportunity to discuss that once we have that in writing. Commissioner
And then
Warren.
I have a question. Does it have to be an elected official, an elected position, like we changed with Dusty's position? We intend to do it when Brady leaves. Is the attorney position different?
Yes, the attorney's
Yes.
position and the sheriff position are elected. What opportunity we have as a board is to appoint someone for the remainder of Attorney Hicken's term and then have an election. If we have a special election, it does cost a substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
So that is another factor that we consider. So that is why I'd like to have a more lengthy discussion with the information that Brady has regarding special elections, so we have all the information before we make a decision. Commissioner?
And can you just remind us all what your term is, the duration?
There would be another election in 2026, so the term ends at the end of 2026.
2 years.
2 years.
That's what I thought, but I just want
Yeah.
to clarify.
Yeah, and the special election could occur anytime up to 84 days before that election. When it gets too close, you can't have a special because you're going to have a regular election. But, so it doesn't have to happen right away, but it could happen, as you choose.
So to confirm, in the meantime, consensus is to post the position?
I would say, personally, I'd like to hold off on that
Okay, got
until
it.
we get the information from the revisor's office
it.
about
Okay.
the change in statute. I think it's really important
Okay.
we look at our statute before we make a decision.
Okay.
Brady, can we ask that you get that information for us for our next board meeting?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I could forward it to you right now.
That'd be
And
great.
so I'm concerned we're waiting too long again.
Ah.
That we have a time frame we need to work on, and we're running into the holidays soon. I would prefer that we at least post it, see if we get any applicants, see if we get any interest at all. I don't know. Doesn't mean we have to approve any of them. We still have that option, but I just think you don't want, this was discussed at EDA about, do you want to have a posting at Christmas time and doing interviews and talking about that, or do you want to do it as soon as possible because you need to make some plans? So I'm more of an advocate, we need to move on this.
I want to take a look at the language that Auditor Powers has sent us.
Oh, I didn't yet.
Oh,
Okay,
Sure.
I will.
yes.
I feel similarly as far as the timeline is concerned. My only concern, as far as posting it as soon as possible, my concern or question is, what are our obligations as far as employment law or hiring? Is an appointment different? Or are we under the same employment hiring laws as an appointment? Is an appointment the same as hiring?
Well, so our handbook generally defines how we fill vacancies. And I haven't looked at that language to see if it's inclusive of, elected positions or not. I suspect that it's not specific. And the handbook in general says that employee in the handbook, that definition includes elected and appointed officials. So, under our handbook,
Bringing it up right now.
yep,
Appointed is elected is a little bit out of the realm of the entire spectrum that I usually work with. But appointed would be similar to, we appoint the county recorder now. We appoint the chief deputy at the sheriff's office, and they're considered regular staff and go through the full kind of recruitment process that we lay out in the handbook. But let me just double check what the language states.
Commissioner White?
This would be similar to filling Dusty's position. It was not, the process did not, we are changing it from elected to hiring. And because the process did not start soon enough, the people that were being interviewed wanted to know if there'd be somebody in place who could help with the transition. We, I believe, due diligence, even knowing who we have on staff that could very well fill the positions, you put it out there, we put it out there to the public as having the process be consistent across the board, consistency. So this would be the same. Getting it out there soon enough to see who might be interested in the position and going from that. It's keeping the process the same.
So our handbook does not clarify the specific types of, how do I want to say it? The specific type of role that someone has in their position, whether they were elected or appointed. We just define employment as either a regular position or a temporary position. And so regular position would just be a regular position that lasts for an extended period of time. There's no specific termination date. It says appointment to a regular position should not, however, be considered a guarantee of permanent continued employment. Regular positions are eligible for certain employee benefits. So it doesn't even break down whether they're appointed or elected officials. I think that just, the elected versus appointed just clarifies kind of how they come into that role. And then everything else after that, once that individual is identified as filling that role, then all of the HR aspect of onboarding and everything kicks in. So it's just kind of the recruitment. The recruitment part of the position is a little different. But if we're appointing an interim county attorney, then we would just go through our regular recruitment process because they're not being elected in. And we would just have to clarify the status of that appointment, that it would have a defined end date, because at that point, they would have to run in general election to be appointed or to be elected and fill the role for the next 4-year term.
Yeah, I just said, I think we should do it as soon as possible. My concern was just if there are things we didn't know as far as the law was concerned with appointments, but I feel like that rando liability isn't real, and it was just a question I had, so sooner is better, and we can go through the process. I have a very strong suspicion that our best candidate is going to be someone who's worked in the office and has the experience of our organization and law in our community. But it's still probably in our communities and organizations' best interest to cast that net sooner, to gather information sooner so we can process everything as soon as we can, just for that stability.
Yep. And Brady, thank you so much for sending this information to us. I had looked up in state statute and could not find this, so.
It's not there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yet.
And if you look at the dates section, it'll read 20510, subdivision 3. It'll read as though it's just cities and towns, but they're specifying, use the dates in 20510 3A are the dates and times you use, which is February, April, May.
And this is for elections, right, not appointments.
That's for an
Elections.
election, that's special elections, so. But if you just look at 20510, you'll go, well, this is cities and towns, but they're specifying, use that. Use those dates.
And for what it's worth, I greatly value and respect that it's an elected position. I'm sensitive to the cost of a special election, and just, I believe we will, I know we have a great candidate, and I believe we will have great candidates. So I don't see the need to have that election greater than the cost of it, I think. I could be convinced otherwise, but.
So what I'm hearing from the board, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we should go ahead and post this position.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And I feel comfortable with that. Again, I'm really appreciative of Brady's diligence in seeking this information out. Would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to post for the appointed position of county attorney.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. We have a motion and support. Anything further? Questions or comments?
Again, I want to thank Attorney Hicken for her service and her work, and I greatly value her recommendation as well, and I think that's likely the path. My concern was, again, what are our obligations with that appointment as far as the law is concerned, and I feel like we should stay with our process, our hiring process, and find our best candidates.
I would agree, and I hope we get some candidates. I know that through talking with colleagues through the Association of Minnesota Counties, it's very difficult to fill these positions. We've all heard that and are aware of it, but we have a motion to post the position, and we have a second. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we have an item that was pulled from our consent agenda, which was item E, the promotion of Holly Schroeder to county recorder. And Commissioner White, you had a question.
Well, it goes to process. Again, we posted Holly, Holly, admittedly, 25 years of on-the-job training and knowing the place, and should be like a shoo-in, right? But the process was to put it out for other candidates and go through the interview process. And like I had stated, when we replaced Brian Silence, got someone in his position, I felt, and I still feel, that it's not appropriate for only one commissioner to be on the interview committee for department heads because of the amount of money and responsibility in those positions. I, as an elected official, a lot of stuff is on trust, and so I don't disbelieve, but I have a responsibility to be able to say to the voters that I know this is the candidate, or this is whatever the situation is, and I believe that every commissioner should be sitting on interview committees for these department heads because of the significant responsibilities of these people that we will be hiring for our organization. And so what happens? So we have the interview, I'm on the interview committee and nobody else is, which still doesn't make it right. That I'm the only commissioner to be part of the interview committee for replacing Dusty. And I want to, again, say we need, and I've heard it, well, this is how other people do it. Well, I don't believe that is enough transparency and enough communications among the commissioners themselves to know what is happening for these significant hires. And I believe that it's important that all of the commissioners are aware of who was interested in filling these positions. And I just want us to change that, if that's our policy or if that's our process. It's just not good enough for me to have only one commissioner chime in, I mean, not chime in, but just sit and make an evaluation, and then say, this is the one, when one has an opportunity to look at all the applicants that might have come in. The question is, well, why weren't these people interviewed, or why weren't? It should be a full board discussion. That's what I'm saying. So.
Well, just to give some background, and it was brought up in the discussion with accepting Molly's resignation and filling the position. So there is no distinction in our current policy in our handbook about different practices for the recruitment and selection of department heads. So we went through the same process that we are now going to post the county attorney position. We went through the same process with previous department heads. I went through that process when I was hired, Brooke Lassard, and then now most recently, Holly Schroeder. So I understand, Commissioner White, what you would like to see, and I know we talked about that when we were conducting the interviews together for the county recorder position. In consultation with James at the time, being the county administrator, and ultimately being the one that it oversees the personnel function of our county, as there was no distinction in our current policy, and again in handbook, there was no reason to deviate unless that policy is changed. So in order to keep consistency, we are treating this position the same and putting it on the consent agenda. Now, I'm definitely open to providing background information on the candidates and what that process looked like. And again, Commissioner White was involved in that process in the interviews. But we felt it important to be consistent with our policy and our practice as it currently states, to not deviate. But we're happy to take recommendations. But again, to be fair and consistent with all applicants, even for department head positions, we feel it is imperative to stick with how it is laid out in the handbook until otherwise noted.
Attorney Hicken.
Just to make sure we understand what it would look like if all commissioners were involved, that would be an open and public meeting under open meeting law. So it would be a similar process to what we've used in the past for hiring county administrators. It's going to be an increased administrative burden, and I'm not saying it's not worth it. No comment on that. I just want to make sure we have a realistic vision of what it would look like. It would include some more complication in scheduling those interviews. The public could be sitting in every single one of those job interviews, and that kind of changes the environment for the candidate, I think. But perhaps they should expect that if they're planning on being a department head anyway. But I just wanted to make that comment.
Well, it sounds like, it's important to be consistent and to be fair, given what is currently in our handbook, but I think Commissioner White brings up an important point, and that this would be an excellent topic for Committee of the Whole to look at this policy and to discuss it in that manner. And I guess that would be my recommendation.
And to be clear, it's only for department heads. It's not going down the ladder at all. Only for those positions where if someone comes to me and say, well, who else? Why did you guys hire this particular person? And I say, well, and they say, well, who else applied? Because at some point it becomes public. If I am does it not? If you're being interviewed, is that more public than before? What rights do those applicants?
Right. So technically, legally, yes, their name does become public when they accept and have an interview. However, out of respect for our applicants, and acknowledging that they maybe don't want their current employer to know, we still don't provide that information publicly. We're trying to maintain their privacy for their current work environment.
So publicly, but as when it happened with, and I do not know if the commissioners know who applied for Dusty's position. So I'm the only one that knows about that one. And we were unaware when it came for the replacement for Brian's position. And there should be a way for the commissioners to get to know who else applied for these positions of great responsibility.
Commissioner Mills.
Well, I want to first recognize Commissioner Storley, if that's okay.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, you know, maybe what has worked in the past needs to be looked at now. However, is there a problem if we would have two commissioners do the interview to represent all of us? Because to your point, Molly, it would involve a lot of extra information, people and everything. So I was to join you on that day, but I was not available, I was away. And we also have to think about the time factor. Between all 5 of us, 2 people should be hopefully available. And so that's why you, Commissioner White, was the only one there.
And I had no idea that you might have been showing up. And the other part is positions that were filled. We were under the gun because of the lateness in advertising, requesting people to apply for the position. There was not enough time for the, and particularly, we needed to wait that 30 days in case someone was going to not want the elected official position to be changed. But there was a 4-month notice, and we needed, that process needed to be started sooner so applicants could apply, be vetted, interviewed, and then hired, and not have any gaps, not have any needs to do an appointed fill-in interim recorder. Thankfully, we had a great person, of course, there to do that, but there are flaws in the process or in the execution of the process that we have, and I just want to have I want to have a discussion about that. We write the policies, and so if the policies were written by commissioners, times change, and we need to review policies to see if they are reflective of the
Committee of the Whole agenda. There are a number of policies that I think warrant taking a look at. Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, and I agree, it should be talked about deeper. I am curious if we could all reach out to the other commissioners from other counties that we all know to also, what do they do? I'd like some comparisons, like from Lake and St. Louis is a little bigger. I can't imagine them doing that, but I don't know. I would like to know what other counties our size do.
We could send something
Even-
out,
Yeah.
not only through District 1, but we could send out through Jill at AMC.
Yes.
And she's done research for us before and been very timely with that. So maybe I'll send an email to her to see what information they might have or could gather. And then after we get that information, we'll take that plus our policy, and we can have a discussion at a committee of the whole.
And I would like that information, and, you know, for counties that have administrators and those that maybe have a coordinator, or those that, so we make sure
We'll
we're
just send it
looking
out,
at the
yeah.
right, I want all the information, but I want to make sure we're separating out what, if there is a difference in those counties.
Okay.
What structure they're under.
All right, will do. We'll get that sent out today. Commissioner White?
No,
Oh,
I'm
all right.
fine.
So,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the promotion of Holly Schroeder as the County Recorder and Registrar of Titles.
thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support? Thank you, Commissioner Storley. We have a motion and support. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good
And I'd like to
discussion.
add something, that originally this was not going to be my vote. Not that there was anything, any doubt that Holly was the person that would best be the successor for Dusty. It was all about the process, and since I now feel like we're actually going to talk about the process, without a doubt, she was the one that I felt, being the lone commissioner on that she had everything, of course, plus she didn't need to have anyone help her onboarding at this point at all. So I just want to bring that up. So I think we're going to be well taken care of going into the future in that department.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
May I ask, since you're here, so have we posted for Holly's position? I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking at the last ad that I saw, and I'm like, was that on there or not? I
Yes,
can't remember.
yeah,
Okay.
no,
We
immediately
did.
when
That's
we
posted
knew
right
she
now.
accepted, we posted that, even before it was presented here for approval, to get that process going. So that position, will be open until midnight, well, 11:59, next Monday night, so Tuesday. Tuesday, we'll have the full list of candidates. I believe there's already, I think, 5 applications for that position, and we still have like slightly less than a week to go.
Okay.
Yep.
So as far as support for her, because she's in that, it was a 2-person office, and now we're down to 1, and we don't know how long it's going to take. How are we supporting her needs to make sure everything gets done?
Yeah.
Does she need?
I've checked in with her. I know that she will sometimes, as much as she prefers not to close because of the availability to be open to the public, she knows that she could at least maybe close for a half hour. She puts a sign out. Or I think too, and I don't know if Brady has any input, I think sometimes she can get support from other close offices of just saying, if anyone stops by, I might direct them to you just to take like a quick note and let people know I'll be back.
I just want to make sure that we're aware that we're doing something to help
Yeah.
her through this transition.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner White.
And that's a nice personal touch to say, you can't come in, but go talk to Brady. He'll be nice to you and he'll help you. I really want to, but not right now. I think they get a real human interaction.
Well, and at least if there's someone, a live person, that can be like, can I at least take your name and your phone number and what your question is, and then I'll relay this information versus just no outlet at all. Yeah, they're, I think the offices downstairs are pretty good at coordinating those needs. So they've got each other's backs, which is great.
Anything else? Well, thank you so much, Allison. We appreciate all you've done for us. All right, we'll move on in our agenda to item 10, Auditor Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the first item is an annual request from MCIT for voting delegates. They have their annual meeting at AMC, and it's at Monday, December 9th, 2024 at 4 p.m. And they need to know who our delegate and alternate are for Cook County for voting at that meeting. Currently, we have listed Ann Sullivan as the delegate, David Mills as the alternate. If we don't even need to respond, if this is correct, I will in any case, but, or you can make a change, or you can confirm the alternate and delegate.
So what we've done in the past is just have the board chair and vice chair, but certainly I would entertain discussion or comments from others. Commissioner Storlake.
I respectfully ask that it be me, because I wasn't able to go to the meeting last December. And I've kind of had a relationship with a few of the board members, even though they come and go for the last 10 years. And I will be going to AMC, so
Okay.
thank you.
I support that request. I have no desire to be alternate. I'm not certain I can attend the conference this year. Clearly, if I attend, I could.
Mhm.
But knowing that Commissioner Storley is available and past experience, I'm very comfortable and supportive of that.
Okay. So I can attend as an alternate. I'm planning to go, but if other commissioners are interested. Okay, well, would someone like to make a motion for a,
Yep, I'll make the motion to have Commissioner Storley as our delegate and Commissioner Sullivan as our alternate for MCIT.
thank you, Commissioner Mills.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and support. Anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next item, I think, is the general fund budget review. So this is for the third quarter. And as you can see, for 3/4 of the year, this is just general fund. 3/4 of the year is 75%. Our revenues at 3/4 of the year are at 112%. And our expenses are at 69%. So it puts our cash position very positive. Only 29% of our levy, if we ended everything today. I'll go through and note some of the highlighted differences and stop me anytime or ask anything that I don't highlight. So in the auditor's office, our revenues are a little low. That's our third quarter federal A87 administration fees for helping support human service expenses. General finance administration, our interest rates are still very, very high compared to recent history, and way over our budget. We've taken in about a little over $1 million, well, that isn't all interest, but close to $1 million in interest so far through 3/4 of the year, almost as high as last year. So most of this money is in money markets, but it's paying well over 4% yet. Going down as they change the market, but still rather high. And the expenses in that department are above budget because we use that department to pay the public safety aid. We just paid $100,000 to Violence Prevention Center of that $179,000 of public safety aid, and the rest hasn't all been paid out yet. But data processing, the IT charges to Public Health and Human Services are higher than budgeted this year. In elections, revenues and expenses are high. That's the primary election expenses, and then the state reimbursement for that. The administrator revenues, the Q3 public information coordinator reimbursement from the hospital not received yet. Human Resources has an increase in their wellness grant this year. The attorney's office and victim witness. So attorney's office has not received third quarter prosecution fees yet. Federal grant for victim witness not received yet. Recorder, their recorder technology revenues exceeding their budget as usual. In the sheriff's office, their revenue is low because they don't receive their $126,000 estimated of amortization aid until December. Their payroll remains low on the expense side as not filling positions. I presume 61% payroll at 75% of the year. The jail, their housing and medical costs are 33% of budget at this point of the year. Some of that may be timing, but very positive. Environmental health has gotten, again, unused watershed grant money from Lake County They're not spending it, they send it to us. We indicate we can spend it, so good partnership. Parks and Trails and Planning and Zoning, the payroll, those expenses are off a little bit. We had not adjusted Mitch Travis's payroll to be 50%, that's how it was budgeted, 50% in Department 391, 50% in 394. That didn't happen in payroll. It is happening now. We just have to make the journal entry to make that 50% for the year. So you'll see that in the final on this report. Solid waste fees are exceeding the budget. In recycling, the second half of the state grant isn't received yet. Emergency services, he did not use professional services for the 2024 conference. The library, historic, and Historical Society, those levy payouts that we approve are all paid in full. Community Center asked for an interfund reimbursement for this year. It's not been made yet. YMCA operations, all their revenue is received in January, so that looks high. This is, of course, a very general report. Doesn't give you the blow-by-blow detail by department.
It's very helpful. Commissioner Johnson.
I have a question not about this report, but about our 2023 numbers. And is our audit finished yet?
Not completely.
And when can we expect that audit?
They're finishing the EDA and the HRA, and then there's just some technical, our finances are essentially done. He's doing a few things on the notes to the audit, and he has to have the HRA and EDA audits done in order to complete our audit, because they're a part of that.
I heard at the HRA meeting that audit is done.
Yeah, the last I'd heard, he didn't have it in.
Okay.
It wasn't.
So it's just, it's kind of important for us when we're talking budget and looking at numbers and planning ahead to make sure we understand what happened in '23 and we see it happening here where we're collecting more in revenues and we don't have as much expenses. And I have said a lot. There's a disparity. I can't say. And looking back at what happened in '23 is kind of important, so we have that continuation of understanding how much these same line items keep getting out of whack. So I hope that happens soon.
Well, I've got the financial numbers for you.
Okay.
So the fund balance, et cetera, so I can present that. I don't have it ready for today, but.
Okay, but yeah, I think that's important that we
Yeah.
as a board see that information.
Yeah, I will get you that
Thank
for
you.
the next meeting for sure.
Commissioner Storley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When will we get the fourth quarter? Is that like December 31st?
Oh,
Oh,
there's a few things that have to happen at the end of a month before I get you the fourth quarter, so it would be sometime in January.
Okay.
We probably, for this kind of report, since it's not audited, et cetera, I don't wait for, there's quarterly service and supplies, I don't wait for that. They're not that big, so, but you do have to have your revenues. They're coding the modified accruals, the first ones that come in, so it would be good to wait at least a couple, 3 weeks to get, a better picture of it.
Okay. So I'm looking at our calendar. In order to have the budget finalized, we have one meeting in November. Because of the election, we aren't going to be meeting, we're going to be meeting after that, the 12th and the
yeah.
26th, December 10th.
And December 17th. Our goal is to have it by the 10th, but we do have 2 meetings in each month.
Right. So, as I said before, I'm just throwing this out, but I would request that we have a budget meeting only. No speakers, no agenda, just a budget meeting at our board meeting. Then we don't have to call a special meeting or anything like that, because we have a lot to hammer out on this paper.
And I would agree that we need to focus on budget for a meeting, but there are things that come up that have timelines. Just as an example, Land Services has items that have a 60-day rule that we absolutely legally have to act on. So I don't know that we can say we can have only a budget meeting unless we do a special meeting, but we can certainly make sure that there is a focus on budget for upcoming meetings. And I think that is our intent. Commissioner White.
How about if we had a budget retreat? We put aside 4 hours in this room, or whatever it might be. Yes, maybe one should go to the Active Living Steering Committee, or all of these different committees we are on, but the budget should take priority, and if all the commission, and make it be public.
Well, it would have to be public.
It'll have to be public.
And that would be a special meeting in essence.
And we'll have a 4-hour retreat. We'll just do it here. Or 6 hours, or however long it will take to get through and really do these numbers. Because we've got to get our levy down. We have it at 9 something. We say we're going to 7, we say we're going to 5, but we're a long ways from that. So I think there would be value in having a special meeting, special public meeting, making it actually be the priority, so the commissioners can have a discussion about it.
Madam Chair. And the other thing, between now and then, there are some areas here that I think we should also talk to those folks who are going to be affected. How would this affect your budget? How would this affect how you do things, so that we have a feeling for, we don't want to just cut you off, but give us some input as to how it would affect where you work, what you do, highway department, you know, all of that. So to give us some time to do that.
Okay. So we have two kind of differing approaches to this. One would be to primarily focus on the budget for an upcoming meeting. The other would be to have a special meeting that would only have the budget as a focus. What do other commissioners, besides Commissioner White and Commissioner Storley, have thoughts in that fashion? Any preferences?
I'm one of those commissioners. I would much rather have it in a regular meeting, but I know the reality is there are other items that need to be addressed in our regular meetings. We're usually not fishing for more things to put on our agenda. It's what's brought to us, and oftentimes it's fairly time sensitive. Maybe things could be put off. So that would be my preference, would be in a regular meeting. I see the value of a special meeting in isolating that focus, and I am open to attempting to coordinate all that. We did have previous work sessions, and not all commissioners could be there, and I recognize those challenges too. In my mind, it really isn't all that complicated. We have these new requests that are driving the higher levy. The new requests are largely based on our strategic planning and how we see and want to change and develop the organization. And so a part of it is putting our money where our mouth is, and this is public money, and these are public mouths. Also recognizing we can't do everything necessarily at once, and we might have to stage things or wait another year to do something. but we can still address those. Those are future, and we can still plan for those, and they're part of our financial management plan. So I don't know that we need 4 hours. I'm open to that for sure. But it's, you know, another way to look at it is just look at our new requests and maybe the ones that are ongoing, such as staffing, we put into the levy. The ones that are maybe one-time, such as some planning or one-offs, we can take out of the fund balance. And I know that it gets to be blurred lines because we're gonna have to make things up down the road, but I'm a fan of that staging and staggering, not staggering like unsteady, staggering as in not all at once. And
The term is glide path.
yeah, I'm a big fan of the glide. And so if there's something in between, you know, getting us down from that 9.8, I think we should pursue that. But I also want to address the priorities that we have identified in the strategic plan, which is, like I said, in turn, driving those new requests. So that was a whole lot of nothing.
Commissioner Johnson, you had your hand up.
So, yes, I think we need to set time aside, just budget talk. And I kind of agree maybe with Commissioner Storley. On a day that we already have a board meeting, we're already committed for that day. Now, I'm going to suggest that we maybe, like on the 12th, not totally adjourn, but take a break. Say we do our business, we take an hour break, we each have a chance to get away from the building for a minute.
The golf course is on November 12th, just so you know.
Oh,
That's
okay.
You know, this is where it gets like.
Well, that's where I'm saying that you're going to have other discussions in the morning, but maybe we come back at 1 o'clock and say, okay, for the next 2 hours, we're only talking budget. Everything else has been done, but we've got to, I hate it when we go to 1 o'clock when we start at 8:30, but I would prefer we all cancel our afternoon Tuesday meeting and say we're going to be here instead, whatever our Tuesday meeting might be. But that's my suggestion.
Commissioner White.
And the strategic plan, transparency. Let's have a board discussion about budget. And it's an open meeting, so the public can hear how we've made these decisions. Not that everyone's going to agree or be happy or ecstatic, but this is how the process went. You get to hear it, and it's transparency. We need to build trust. We need to, well, it's just the only way to have a democracy, really functioning one, so.
And that is the way we
I've
always
always
make
done
our
it, yeah.
budget decisions. It is in public, and it has to be. Commissioner
And I
Johnson.
think that, whether it's a special meeting or 2 hours set aside, whatever it is, I think we need to make sure we inform our department heads that we probably will have some questions for them. Be prepared to come in and answer questions if needed. I think especially in light of our administrator situation right now, this is where we need to step up and be asking the questions and not relying on somebody else to ask the question for us.
Well, I'm going to recommend that we take the opportunity to visit with our interim county administrator, and we will get back to people about a date for a meeting and a focus for that meeting, whether it be a special meeting or included in our regular Tuesday county board meeting.
And I would like to just chime in on Commissioner Johnson. I think an extension into the afternoon on the day where we're all here to start with, I think that's probably the better bet in trying to find another day that we'll all be able to get together.
Okay. Thank you. Any other input before we move on to item C? We do need to accept Auditor Powers' report by motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the report of Q3 2024.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Commissioner White. We have a motion and support. Any additional discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item is the Canvas Board meeting. The election is Tuesday, November 5th. Our Canvas Board can meet between the 3rd and the 10th days after the election. I'd like to have it done as soon as possible, just for more time for anything that may arise. And it's good for the state to get them sooner rather than later. So I'm suggesting Friday, November 8th at 10 a.m. in the Commissioners' Room. And also ask the board to either choose a member to be on that board, as you are official members, someone who's not a candidate at the election, so 4 of you are eligible. And if you can't come up with that or with a designee, then I'll designate someone in your place.
Is there a commissioner that would be interested in serving in that role?
I'd be available.
That would be wonderful, Commissioner Storley.
Right.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I'll make a motion to set our Canvas Board meeting for November 8th, 2024 at 10 a.m. in the Commissioners' Room, and have Commissioner Storley as our commissioner on the Canvas Board.
Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. We have a motion and support. Any additional questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 12, we had planned to have an updated discussion with Administrator Yorkie. He was planning to be back here. Auditor Powers, is there anything you'd like to share in his absence?
Well, we did send out the original, this is the general fund, and you all can
And
see that.
And I just want to point out again, it's wrong. Labels are reversed. That's not the corrected version.
10 columns.
Yeah, where it says 2023 approved, that should be 2023 actual. So that if you go through and compare departments, you can see the difference from 2023, and that is kind of why I also wanted to see the audit. I wanted to verify where we're at. But if you go through and then my other issue is that I have to manually figure out the revenues and expenses for each department. And I happen to know that IFS will count it. So I don't know where this program is coming from exactly.
It's from IFS, and then, James, you can send it in Excel, and then you can manipulate it. And so he did this to make it more readable for the board members.
But when it's incorrect, it's not readable. And
Yeah.
when you don't have all the information that you need to make informed decisions, it's not helpful. So if you are somebody looking at budgets, you need to know what that revenue amount is. You need to know what the expense amount is, not the final levy amount.
And,
It's kind of important, but you need to know the other two that go into it.
yeah, so,
And this takes a lot of manual labor. And so I would suggest we go back to the IFS system of the actual document. I get it. Some of those account numbers maybe confuse some people. But then I'm also going to make a suggestion for this county board come December. I'm talking about training. We have people in-house that can do some training for board members to learn to read the IFS reports. Every department here gets a monthly IFS report. for their department. This board should be looking at that. And if you don't know how to read it, if you don't understand what goes into it, it's kind of hard when it comes to November and December of understanding how you set your levy. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So we have a number of items that when we get together to discuss the budget, we will have to have, and we'll make sure that we address those questions, Commissioner.
You're going to have that Excel in about a minute.
All right. But I think those will all be important pieces when we meet to have, and we'll make sure that we also have those printed out so
Yeah.
that as we're discussing, rather than trying to read it on a small screen, we can,
And it might be that both versions are useful.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I guess maybe my first budget, lagged in understanding, but I don't really have an issue with either format. Appreciate efforts to try to make it easier to read, and, in my mind, I just flip the two column labels around. It's not, it doesn't hold me up. I understand the need for accuracy to make good decisions, and how tedious and onerous it can be to need to do, manual audits, basically. So whatever makes it easier and better is great. If Commissioner Johnson wants it in the IFS, that's fantastic. If another commissioner wants it in a different format, I have no issue with that either. It's a horse apiece in my mind. It's just getting down to what our vision and priorities are, and balancing the needs of the community with the burden of the levy. But yeah, the more accurate, the better, for sure.
Commissioner?
Yeah, so I would ask that this report that got attached to our agenda today get pulled, and the correct one, because I know there is a correct one, gets put in. So that if the public was to go to our meeting today and look that up, they aren't confused and misled. It's really important, especially with numbers, that we make sure we're putting out accurate information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I found this from previous yesterday and put this out. I made all the number corrections, not just to our proposed budget and levy, but then those others that I brought to the board the last meeting.
Right.
So all of those are in that document and in the IFS user selected report I just sent to you. But I didn't take the time to look at the headings, so I didn't make that correction. But
Well,
I will do that on that same report.
That's fine,
So-
and I just want to thank you for doing this, for the board, and I know the public realizes too. Yesterday, when we were updating the agenda, and given what has transpired over the last few days, I was appreciative that you could provide that, and that we could actually attach it and get it to everyone. So I want to thank you for your work, Brady.
Sure.
Anything else related to budget?
I guess, Chair, if when we have these further discussions, I think it'd be really helpful to bring up those new requests again, and then Brady also mentioned that he could provide the fund balance and just see where we're at. And I know we're in a very good place, but it's important to quantitate that and then try to come up with that strategy with where we're gonna levy and where we're not gonna.
Yeah, and I'll send that out yet today, that the new request, or called additional resources, with, I've made a couple of the adjustments that we've already happened, so you'll see it on there. It's 630, just with adjustments, with no other actions.
And I'm thinking of, can we be reminded about the other, not just the general fund, and we've already, I think last time we had the other two major accounts on there. But I'm thinking airport, and let's, yeah, what else? Oh, and then I was wondering about our debt levy. Where we're at with, our debt payments. I tried to add that up and what percentage we're at right now. Because I'm trying to read, was it 233,000 or something that we are planning on taking out of fund balance to pay our 2023?
Yeah, so
I forgot my paper.
that's what I presented
Yeah.
a couple of meetings ago. Not a couple, but at the proposed levy.
Yeah,
We
so
had,
that's where.
there were
that's
two,
from.
there were two items. One was the additional 300,000 that HRA was asking, that they may not need, but they have to ask for it right now because they said either give us a loan or put it in the levy. So we put it in the levy at this, for this junction, that seemed appropriate to use it's really the ARPA funds, the one that we have a lot of funding left to use. So we put that 300,000 in that item, and the other was the new bonding. We bond for the, yeah. So we put it to offset those two numbers using the, so in essence, that's you could call it a fund balance use, but it's actually this.
But it's actually ARPA money.
It's that ARPA money.
Yeah.
And we haven't received the airport budget, correct? We just, the
Yes,
dollar
we've-
amount?
we-
Did we accept that? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I could have been.
We have the airport budget, but we may have an update after November 1st that could impact the budget, so.
But yeah, if we have all of that information available at the same time,
Yeah,
that would be helpful, I think.
all right, thank you. Good discussion. Lots to gather, but all important information to have as we continue examining the levy and
The-
budget for 2025.
Yeah, so somehow we've got to get, you may want to hear from department heads that day.
Yeah.
Or
I made a note of
maybe
that.
you don't need to hear from all of them that day, but either to know then or at the subsequent meetings so that they can be there to address. So it's a chicken and egg. Sometimes you need them there to know
It might be
why
that
you want to ask a question, so.
we might, be able to get some written information from department heads and then be able to request their attendance for questions.
So I guess what I'm saying, maybe you could ask questions. You can send them to me individually if you have questions, and I'll forward them to departments, looking for get their answers in their words, for example.
We will do that.
Okay. Not knowing it may not all happen for the November 12th, but for the next meeting, if not that
Yes,
one.
absolutely. Commissioner Mills?
I just want to remind us too that when we're having these types of discussions and we have these types of questions, it's extremely important to keep our administrator or interim administrator in the loop. So the question may not be directly to the interim or administrator, but just knowing the types of questions and being in that loop, I think, is critical. So might be tricky in the beginning here, but hopefully it'll be a smooth on-ramp just to get Rowan in the loop and make sure he's in these discussions. I think that's going to make everything a lot easier. So I think it's appropriate, Brady, for us to send questions to you, but I would ask if we do that we also CC Rowan on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 12, Commissioner updates. Commissioner Hawkins. Johnson, excuse me.
Let's see. What have I done? HRA. Okay. Oh, ARC, they're having a retirement party for Wally on the November 15th, and that flyer is on my counter with my notes for this morning. So let you all know that if you want to go to Virginia to have a party, it should be fun.
They know how to party in Virginia.
I don't have anything else really that happened, I guess, that I can think of right now.
All right. Commissioner White?
Hold. No, there wasn't a lot of, no, I didn't have a lot of interaction with anybody last week in a formal manner, so. But I would ask that if I have the opportunity to go to the Indian Health Conference up in Grand Portage, that the Active Living Steering Committee get, are you my alternate on that one?
I will not be able to attend. The Active Living Steering Committee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday.
I'm not even sure if I am the alternate. Well, look, 11 o'clock on which Tuesday?
And do you know the date? November? November 5th.
5th? Yeah.
At 9 a.m., I'm sorry.
9 a.m. I have a 9:30. I see it on my calendar. I must be the alternate. And it's virtual, it looks like, so I'll try to, I'll do the juggle. I'll be there for a half hour for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. I'll click yes.
Anything else, Commissioner White?
No.
All right.
Well, I had, no, nothing. I went to the chili feed after twirling around the block 5 times, and then at the hub on Saturday, and then just parking really illegally, parking people in and walking to get my chili from the hub. So, I don't know the results of that, but there were a lot of people.
The information that I received was that 40% of their sales were to tourists that were there, people and their families for MEA, so it was it was really good timing. They did very well.
That's awesome.
So. Commissioner Mills?
Largely a EDA. We're on our second round of interviews, and I am excited about that. We have a hiring committee, which we have 3 EDA members, myself, Myron Bersheim, and Peter Klissold, as well as Jason Hale on that committee, and very encouraging. So I'm hoping we have a special meeting of the EDA board scheduled to hopefully offer the job, and it's scheduled. Oh shoot, I just saw it. The 29th.
All right.
That's, I think, the biggest. Well, I guess it relates to this previous conversations too, just about our policies and stuff. But it's been a challenge just to get the 4 of us able to interview. So it's a lot of doodling.
Yeah. All right, Commissioner Storley.
Oh, I'm sorry. And yesterday I was in Duluth for the CHB meeting, but left early. I saw Commissioner Johnson and Commissioner Sullivan both attending virtually. And I left partway through the CDC's presentation, and it seemed at the time like kind of a route presentation. I didn't know if there was more after that I missed that you guys could clue me in on.
They are going to send the slides, and so I think that's something that we can share with everybody when we get them.
Yeah.
And Cook County was very well represented. It was a good thing that we did post it, that we did create a public notice on that.
Yeah. I just, yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. We had our district meeting up at I Falls, which I've forgotten how far away it is. I'm in Virginia, and I'm thinking, oh, you only have another hour. 2 and a 2.5 hours. But anyway, the roads were good, great day to travel. Just a couple highlights, we did, do the voting on the environment and all of that. That'll be coming to us through our Association of Minnesota Counties, and the secretary's getting all that together, so we can do the voting on that. I don't know if this jogs Commissioner Johnson's memory of that meeting, which was good. Good news from AMC, they really are now understanding that we really cannot travel to St. Paul for an hour meeting. So they're going to do a lot more virtuals.
Good.
Starting in January. There'll be a virtual training for new commissioners and chairs and vice chairs, and it'll go all the way through into April. So that was the good news there, that they'll be doing that. The other thing I'll report on is our Association of Minnesota Counties have had a discussion on having a representative of our group down in St. Paul when the legislature starts. John Ungaro has retired from St. Louis County, and he was their rep. And so we wrote a job description, and he will be representing us down at the legislature in January. And he said that he would like to finish his term with us, and then we'll talk about the future. But I really think it's important to have a representative there. And he's been with us for over 10 years, so I'm looking forward to working with him. We all are working with him come January.
Any other items? Township information, anything you'd like to share?
Nothing right now.
Okay. So with Commissioner Johnson, I was at the HRA meeting, and Director Hale did talk about the fact that he would be engaged with the interviews with the EDA, but that he has, as of October 11th, no longer serving in his capacity with the EDA. So we clarified that. We had a planning commission, obviously. Today we voted on one of the items related to Seagull Outfitters, but coming before us in December will be an item related to the potential addition of a cell tower in Cook County. And so I would encourage commissioners to make sure that they look at the Planning Commission documents, all the information that's there, and if you have time or so desire to look at that discussion prior to December.
Quick question, is this wouldn't require a modification to our cell tower zone?
No, this actually, and just so people are aware, if they haven't looked, and Commissioner Storley is very familiar with it because it's in her district, but it's down very close to the county line for Lake and Cook County, very close to Highway 61. It's a very small service area, but I would encourage you to look at those questions and whatever, and we have till December, but.
And is that an erection of a new tower?
Yes. The Cook County Historical Society, just to give you an update, has had their new roof installed, and that was Rhino Roofing out of Duluth. And Brady and I were discussing this earlier. It's amazing with how steep those roofs are to see how adept the roofers were at working with shingles and equipment and whatever on there, and also making sure that areas where the public were located between World's Best Donuts and the Historical Society out in front, and off to the south side or the lake side of the building, that all was secured and done very well. We've had one rainstorm since the roof was torn off. There were no leaks or damages. It's been very well done, and so we paid half down prior to the installation of that roof, and now we will pay the other half of that bill in the near future. Also, the Historical Society had their annual membership meeting. Ultimate Waters was recognized for her work with history throughout the county, and really incorporating the true history of Cook County. And there's a very nice spot on WTIP that features Alta, and I would encourage you to listen to that. The Airport Commission met, and I'm so proud of the work they have been doing. As you know, all those aspen trees and birch trees along the runways grow up very quickly. They've spent hundreds of hours brushing and completely cleared the south side of the runway all the way back to the tall trees, which they cannot legally touch. And the AWAS is working much better, and they have just gotten so much more done given the good weather that we've had. So they are going to continue to work on the north side of the runway, but they had an equipment breakdown. We're waiting for parts late last week, and hopefully they are working as we speak. And then lastly, related to the airport, Attorney Hicken is going to be engaged in a mediation, and maybe Attorney Hicken, you want to talk briefly about what will happen on November 1st.
Well, it's just an agreed upon mediation with RS&H, and I probably shouldn't go into detail, but I'll be there. Stephanie Ball, our attorney, will be there also, and I will report back to the board as to our as to the result of that. It's quite possible I'll be in contact with the chair and or our interim county administrator during the mediation if there are some close calls that need to be made. But, yep.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll look forward to hearing more in November. With that, we have our correspondence and memos, our sales tax comparison, and with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
No, I just have a question for Attorney Hicken. What's happening with the tennis court? Is that moving forward for repair, for redoing it?
There was an inspection, again, for repair. So the contractor, UMAC, and Lakehold Manufacturing, whose product was applied to the surface, were up last week and did an inspection. Brooke Lassard was there on behalf of the county. Kyle Oberg was there on behalf of the Tennis Association. The company made a commitment to be here first thing next spring to make some repairs and do a surfacing. I'll be working on getting a written agreement with their attorney to commit them in writing to doing so within a strict timeline. As I understand it, it's their desire to complete all that work before school is out down in the Twin Cities, because a lot of their work is for school tennis courts, and that has to be done during the summer. So it sounds like it's mutually beneficial that those repairs happen before the summer season up here really gets started, so that's good. I'm hopeful, but yeah, we'll need to continue to follow up with those companies.
And then I have one more question about subcontractors doing work. Brian had mentioned this before he left, but there was new fencing around the Little League field, and the gate is not acceptable. And he was told that they'd be back next week, which was like a month and a half, 2 months ago. And the gate is for security, so you can't like get into the fence, and it cannot do that. And so I believe that Brian said that that contractor was paid in full. Mm-hmm. And I believe that gate needs to be fixed, for one. And two, we need to reconsider, probably Brooke should, and the administrator, bills are not paid on work until it is meets the standards or approval of the county oversight, like for the tennis court, and which they have not been paid in full, is my understanding. But the gate people have been paid in full, so just going forward. Okay. It's a minor thing, but it's a process that we need to follow.
Absolutely, and we'll check with Brooke on that.
Okay.
Thank you. Good questions. Anything else for the good of the order? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Thank you, Commissioner Starley. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. We have motion and support. Any last items? All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all.
Thanks.
I'm sending a text, a message right now to Brooke, because